Get that hideous piece of junk off your lawn before I cut your power tonight.
Ma'am, it's a backup generator. My daughter is diabetic.
Your daughter is not my problem. That box is a violation and you will remove it.
The county approved every connection. Don't you dare lecture me about permits.
I decide what belongs in this neighborhood, not you, not the county. You should feel lucky I even let you move in.
I didn't say a word. She had no idea I spent 6 years at the Texas Public Utility Commission investigating exactly the kind of fraud she was about to commit. And when she actually killed my power, with my 12-year-old's insulin warming in a dead fridge, she didn't just cross a line. What she did next? It cost her everything. Let me take you back to where it started. I've been an electrician since I was 26. Started pulling wire through crawl spaces in August heat so thick you could taste the insulation dust. Worked my way up to master electrician in 4 years. Residential, commercial, industrial. Then the Texas Public Utility Commission hired me as a compliance investigator. 6 years I spent walking into substations, co-ops, and municipal utilities across the state. My job was simple. Check whether the people who controlled the power grid were actually following the rules. I've seen falsified inspection reports, backdated maintenance logs, and safety violations hidden behind filing cabinets. I know what utility fraud looks like, the way a chef knows when milk is turned. I left the PUC after my wife Catherine was killed by a distracted driver on I-35 south of Waco. She was driving home from her sister's place. Lily was 10. I was 40 miles away at a job site when the hospital called. After that, nothing about our apartment in Austin felt right. The commute, the silence in the kitchen where her voice used to carry. So I sold everything, took the insurance money, and bought a 3-bedroom house in Pecan Hollow Estates, quiet HOA subdivision in Collin County, just north of Dallas. Good schools, shaded streets, a pecan tree in the backyard that Lily named Gerald the afternoon we moved in. The first 3 days felt like breathing again. Lily rode her bike in the cul-de-sac. I organized my tools in the garage. Neighbors waved. The street smelled like fresh-cut St. Augustine grass and someone's charcoal grill down the block. Then Tammy Pritchard showed up. Day 3. A white Cadillac Escalade rolled into my driveway like it owned the deed. Blonde hair shellacked into a helmet that could survive atmospheric re-entry. Linen blazer over yoga pants. Clipboard in one hand, welcome packet in the other. She didn't introduce herself, she announced herself. We like to keep things a certain way around here. You'll find the standards handbook very thorough. She walked around my house, not inside, around, taking notes on my fence height, trash can placement, and the color of my garage door trim. I stood on my own porch watching this woman inspect my property like a health inspector grading a taco stand. I'd evaluated 200 subdivisions across Texas in my career. I knew a power trip the second I smelled one. Lily started to settle in. She made a friend, Maya Henderson, 3 doors down. They rode bikes after school while I rebuilt the workshop and pretended the quiet didn't still catch me off guard. Catherine's absence had a sound. A kitchen timer going off with nobody calling out to check it. 2 weeks after we moved in, the grid backed me up. A summer surge knocked out half of Collin County for 14 hours straight. ERCOT buckled under the load. Every house on our street went dark at 2 in the afternoon, when the heat index hit 106. Lily's insulin pump beeped a low battery warning by hour 3. By hour 6, the refrigerator had gone warm, and her backup insulin pen was sitting in a fridge that read 78 degrees. I drove 40 minutes to the nearest CVS at 2 in the morning, bought a replacement vial, and drove back with the AC on full blast, and a cooler bag wedged between the seats. That night I ordered a Generac 22-kilowatt standby generator and filed for a 200-amp panel upgrade with Collin County. The inspector came out, signed off on every connection. Clean, legal, documented. The kind of install I used to approve when I carried a PUC badge. 72 hours after the Generac hummed to life, I found a letter in my mailbox. HOA violation notice. Outdoor mechanical equipment in violation of Section 4.7, Community Aesthetic Standards. Removal required within 30 days. Fine. $250 per day. I looked at the signature. Tammy Pritchard, President, Pecan Hollow Estates, HOA. 9 years in the chair. I folded the letter, slid it into a file folder, and wrote the date on the tab. Old habits from the PUC. You never know when a paper trail is going to save your life. I responded the way I would have responded at the PUC. with paperwork. Certified letter to the HOA board. Return receipt requested. Attached, my Collin County electrical permit, the signed inspection report, and a highlighted copy of Texas Property Code Section 209.009, which prohibits HOAs from banning safety devices that have been approved by a governmental entity. I kept the language polite, professional. The kind of letter that says, I've done this before, without having to spell it out. Tammy didn't respond to the letter. She responded to the idea that someone had the nerve to send one. The fines started running. $250 a day. By the end of the first week, the ledger showed $1,750. By the end of the second, it doubled. I didn't pay a dime. I knew those fines were built on a violation that didn't exist, and I knew that under Texas law, an HOA can't enforce a fine that contradicts a county-issued permit. But knowing the law and proving it are two different games. And Tammy was betting I wouldn't bother playing the second one. I attended the next board meeting. First Tuesday of the month, 7 o'clock, in the Pecan Hollow Clubhouse, a converted pool house that smelled like Maxwell House coffee and carpet cleaner. The air conditioning was cranked to 64 degrees, which felt like a meat locker after the 102 outside. Tammy sat at the head of a folding table, flanked by 3 board members, who looked like hostages at a press conference. Brenda Kay, the secretary, sat beside her with a laptop, ready to transcribe whatever version of reality Tammy preferred. I stood up during open comment period and presented my case. County permit, inspector sign-off, state statute, 3 minutes, clear and factual, no anger. Tammy let me finish the way a cat lets a mouse run. Then she smiled. This isn't a courtroom, Mr. Coulter. The board has already reviewed your situation. The violation stands. The 3 other board members stared at the table. Nobody voted. Nobody discussed. The decision had been made before I walked in the door. I'd seen cleaner democratic processes in countries that hold elections at gunpoint. 2 days later, a letter arrived from Preston and Kay Legal Associates. Thick envelope, embossed letterhead. The language was aggressive. Cease and desist. Threat of property lien within 14 days. Legal fees to be assessed against my account. It read like someone had watched 3 courtroom dramas and tried to write the 4th. Something about it nagged me. Not the threats. Those were boilerplate HOA intimidation. It was the name. Kay. Same last name as Brenda Kay, the board secretary who sat next to Tammy at every meeting. I pulled up the State Bar of Texas Attorney search. Typed Preston and Kay Legal Associates. 0 results. Tried Todd Kay. The name on the signature line. No active license. No inactive license. No record of any kind. Dug deeper. Todd Kay had a paralegal certificate from an online program dated 2014. He'd never passed the bar exam, never sat for it. He was Brenda's cousin from Plano who did freelance notary work on the side. This man was about as much a lawyer as I am a ballerina. In Texas, impersonating a licensed attorney is a Class A misdemeanor under Penal Code Section 38.122. Up to $4,000 in fines and a year in county jail. Most people never need to know that. I had seen 3 cases exactly like it during my PUC years. Shell companies sending legal threats on behalf of utilities that didn't want their own fingerprints on the envelope. I printed the state bar results, saved the letter, photographed the envelope, postmark, return address, everything. Filed it all. Made a margin note. Unauthorized practice of law. Criminal referral potential. I didn't call anyone. Didn't confront Tammy. Didn't mention it to Garrett next door, who'd taken to bringing me coffee on Tuesday mornings and warnings on Thursday evenings. I just filed and waited. I'd learned a long time ago at the PUC that the best investigations aren't built on confrontation. They're built on patience. You let the other side keep moving, keep talking, keep leaving fingerprints on things they shouldn't be touching. Every action they take after the first lie is another layer of evidence. Tammy was building her case against me. She just didn't realize I was building mine against her. And mine had footnotes. 3 weeks into the fines, my neighbor Garrett Huxley walked across the yard with 2 cans of Lone Star and a look on his face that told me this wasn't a social visit. Garrett was 61, retired, and had spent 30 years as a justice of the peace before hanging it up to restore vintage Mustangs in his garage. He had the quiet authority of a man who'd heard 10,000 lies under oath and could smell one through a closed door. "She's done this before," he said, settling into the lawn chair I kept near my workbench. "The Winston's on Sycamore. fined into foreclosure over a basketball hoop. County records show the house was bought at auction by her husband's cousin for 60 cents on the dollar. The Mendozas on Elm. She reported their garden shed to code enforcement 17 times in 2 years. They sold and left. The Harrisons on Oak. She declared their fire pit a burn hazard. They lasted 8 months. He pulled a folded paper from his shirt pocket. 6 names. 6 families. All gone within Tammy's 9-year reign. None of them fought back publicly. All of them left the way people do when the cost of staying becomes heavier than the cost of losing your home. She doesn't enforce rules, Garrett said, taking a long pull from his beer. She weaponizes them, and she picks people who don't have the resources or the stomach to fight. I thanked him, added the names to my file. Then I waited for what I knew was coming next. It came on a Monday. Tammy filed a formal complaint with the Collin County Code Enforcement Division, alleging that my generator was a fire and explosion hazard to adjacent residential properties. She attached photographs, taken from the sidewalk at angles designed to make the Generac look as industrial and threatening as possible. She demanded an emergency inspection. The county sent Larry Bowen, 28 years as an electrical inspector, the kind of man who wears steel-toed boots to a desk job because he might get called to a site before lunch. He spent 40